Okay, so here's the main IRSA homepage, and there's several different tools that you can use. IRSA Viewer is going to be the most flexible. So you go to IRSA Viewer and you put in the target that you want and the size that you want, remembering that you have to change units before you change the number. And then for what we're doing, our stuff is in glimps, so we need to pick IREC 1 and IREC 2. And then for good measure, we're going to pick the 2-mass 6-degree mosaics as well. And so if you guys have questions, just yell it. So it comes up, so IRSA Viewer, there's no guarantee, even though we asked for all 5 of these images at the same time, there's no constraints within the tool that IRSA Viewer is always loading the same piece of sky. So by default, it comes up with all the images locked together for color tables, but it's not for position. So you can see this one is locked, and it's locked. If you click it again, it's unlocked. And then here, we're going to align by WCS, which means it's going to, the image that I had selected was the 2-mass J, and it's going to align all the images together and lock them north up, so that then you can, when you zoom in on one, all of them zoom in together. I'm going to change the color table. Was that a question? Did not hear a question. Okay. I'm going to change the color table so that it is a little bit easier to see, I think. Okay, so it's easiest with IRSA Viewer to load images first. You can load catalogs first, but then it assumes you might only want one image ever. So if you want multiple images, you got to start with loading images. And then catalogs, I'm going to load in one of our catalogs. So you can search the catalogs at IRSA, but I'm going to load a catalog from disk. And it has—
Wait. I got excited. I just understood something for the first time. And so since I misunderstood it for 3 years now, maybe somebody else is misunderstanding it. So the idea of loading the image and then loading the catalog. Okay, so a catalog is a large set of objects that have been identified. And what IRSA Viewer does is look at the catalog and find the objects from that set that are in the picture.
Yes, right? But it's, so if I loaded in
more, but yeah.
Yeah, so if I do a search here, if you look here, there's 747634026. So 747 million sources. So IRSA Viewer is definitely not loading in all 747 million sources. It is doing the search in the database itself to get the subregion that you're requesting and then overlaying just that subset. Does that make sense? It's a matter of where the culling is happening.
Sure. Right? So it's actually doing those 2 steps at once, but I didn't realize. Anyway, sorry. That was just
it's all
one
good.
of my things. Okay.
It's all good.
Thanks.
So then I'm going to load a catalog from disk, and you can, there's a variety of formats, but table file is going to be the one that it's most happy with. And so I've given you several different table file versions. I'm going to load in what makes the most sense. I'm going to load in probably everything because it'll show you some of the hiccups you might encounter. So this is a big catalog. And so it's going to take a couple seconds for it to push it over the internet over to the server. Okay, so then what it's, come on. All right. So it's loaded in all 46,000 sources here, but because it's 46,000 sources is a very large number. It's only showing 100 at a time in the table. And then if you look on the plot here, it's hard to see, but there's grayscale. And so the grayscale is not each point individually. The grayscale is corresponding to which, how many points are there, and the points are relatively sparsely distributed in RA and DEC, and so you have mostly light gray, and you only have one region of the darker gray. Now over here, as soon as you see the gray points in the plot, you know that over here is also what we call decimated. In other words, not all 46,000 points are shown on this image because it would swamp your browser. Okay, so it's only showing something like 1 out of 10 of the points in the plot, in the catalog. But it's showing you that there are, if I drag the divisions here, you can see that it's, we can zoom it to fit. You can see there's a big there's a big catalog and it's covered the whole region that we've asked for here. Okay. So if you want to see which row corresponds to a specific source, you can click on it and it will jump to that source in the catalog and in the table. And it works the other way too. If you pick a source in the table, then it's going to jump the source to that point. Now, because the catalog is actually slightly bigger than the image, that's why it was giving me the center image errors a second ago, because the first source in the catalog is off the edge of the image. So you can click around in there, and once you get to the point where there's only points and not grayscale in the plot, it's all also interactive. You can click on the plot and get taken to where it is in the image. Relevant to the stuff that we're going to be doing later today or shortly, if you pick a region, okay, and then you tell it filter, then look, we have many fewer sources in the image, in the plot, and left in the catalog. And so now that we're down out of the grayscale into the blues, now it is truly interactive. And when you click in the plot, it'll show you the row in the catalog, and it'll show you the highlight on the image as you click around through it. If you want to save this, again, you sort of have to wrap your brain around the fact that there's images and there's plots and there's catalogs that are all sort of metaphorical layers. So you can click save from the image, from the plot, and it will save a plot. You can click save from the table and it will save the table. You can click save from the image toolbar here, and now it gives you a choice. It's asking you, do you want to save the underlying fits image, which is not the stretch and not the overlays, it's just the underlying fits image. It's asking you if you want to save the PNG file, which is the stretch you've got plus the overlays you've got. And the region file is just the overlays. Now, the hitch in this is that when the programmers wrote the original version of this, they did not imagine that anybody would want to save a region file that had more than 500 regions. So if you have regions overlaid, if you have more than 500 regions overlaid, then and you click this, it will only save 500 of them. So it's really important to keep an eye on the numbers of things when you're doing this. They're working on fixing this particular thing, so that in the not too distant future, you'll be able to save more than 500 regions. But at the moment, that's what we're stuck with.
Is each one of those small boxes a separate region on its own layer?
Mm-hmm. Well, no, all the regions are together, right? So if we go to this icon, it'll show you, okay, so I've got a target, and it's not showing up in the view right now because it's the center of the image, right? And then the table upload, all of that table that I uploaded is another layer, right? And if you want to add other things like a compass or coordinates or whatever, they become additional layers on the image. Does that make sense?
What are we just limited to 500 of red boxes?
Saving the regions file.
Saving, yes.
Okay.
Saving what?
Saving the regions file, which is the catalog. Well, the regions is everything on the image. So,
okay.
So if you save the regions file right now, you'll have one for the compass, one for the coordinates, one for the target, leaving you, 497 sources from the catalog. Does that make sense? Because it'll only save the first 500 regions.
Okay, I think it makes sense, and I'm sure it'll make more sense later when we start using the tool. Thanks.
It's a bit of a gotcha, which is why I bring it up. And we're working on fixing it. Okay, so then for DS9, let me get a DS9 window going here. Come on. Okay, so we've got a DS9 image here. So you can see again that you've got a small region inside the big region, just like you do over here. You've got the small region inside the big region. But as I talked with several of you yesterday, if I'm on a Mac, so if I do Option click, it moves to center the place that I clicked. For a Windows machine, I believe it's the second button. So if you click your scroll wheel, it should jump and center the place where you click. To get north up and align multiple images, if you have multiple images loaded, you do frame, match, frame, WCS. and then it will align all the images to the one you've got selected and put north up. So this one over here, this was a glimpse image, and so is this, although what I have picked here is a glimpse 2. So let's go back. There's the glimpse 1, and I've got glimpse 1 over here. So as soon as it loads, sometime or not. Okay, so the stretch is going to be a little bit different. And here in particular, it's hard to see the nebulosity. So one of the things we talked about yesterday was scale parameters. Okay, and we're going to set the max of, set it manually, or you can grab the green line and drag it, right? So, and this is a histogram of the values in the image. So now we have something where we can actually see the stars in the clusters that we care about. Now, if you want to do overlays here, you need regions files. And it doesn't understand IPAC table format. So if I click on region, load, then I go and find the regions files that I've made for you. No, not handouts and worksheets, catalogs. So the everything region file is here. And it'll ask you load into current frame or load into all frames. If you have more than one frame loaded, then by all means, load into all frames. But again, it's a big catalog. So here it's not decimating. Here it really is circling every source that it has in the catalog. If you want to learn more about an individual source, now it's loaded in the regions, but it doesn't necessarily have a nice catalog interface like the IRSA tools do. So if you want to learn more about any given source, you'll have to double click on it. Come on, I have to do edit region, so that makes sure that it understands that you're talking about regions. So if you double click on it, it'll give you the coordinate, and then you can go and look it up in the catalog as to which object it is. And it doesn't have ways of making plots of the catalog like the IRSA tool does. But this one allows you to make complex regions. So you can do a region polygon, right? And then click to make a region, and then you can move the region, you can change the shape, you can add vertices, right? So if you want to make something that is more of a circle, but not quite, you certainly can, okay? Now, here's where it can get very powerful. Region, save. Now it's gonna save everything that I've got overlaid here, all the catalog source, but also the polygon, right? So if you want to just save the polygon, if we do region, come on, region, let's see, region parameters. No, that's not it. List regions, I think, is what I'm looking for. It should give you a pop-up that has a list of all the regions. Okay, and then you can go through and find the polygon, right? Because it's got all of the 46,000 sources in here. So we can save everything, or we can say delete that region, select all, delete, and then we can make a new region, a new polygon that has the vertices that we want. That's still making size. Okay, so we can make this. Now, if you want to save the combination of the image and the region right now, you have to do a screen snapshot. It's probably the most efficient way to do it. If you do region save, then it's going to save just that one region. So if I do, let's see, region list, we should see just that polygon with the list of vertices. If you'd rather see it in decimal degrees, you do list and you tell it I would like decimal degrees, and it'll give it to you in decimal degrees. So in the context of sharing with each other what the polygon that we want to use for the nebula stream is, then this is what you need. You need a way of not just visualizing it for yourself, but actually telling other people specifically what the vertices are. So you can either save the region or view the region or something to get it quantitatively out of here. But for sharing visually with each other, then you probably want a screen snapshot. Or there is a way to do exports. And I thought that export PNG would give you a view of what you're looking at, but it doesn't. It just has the FITS image as PNG. It doesn't have the overlays. I'm trying to think of the important things. I think all the questions I got yesterday, I've now covered. So what other questions?
Real quick on the region, I'm assuming it's the case, but if I save it in sexagesimal and somebody else saves it in degree mode, it'll flip back and forth between the two of us.
It'll handle it, yeah. It's just a matter of how it's written, right? It's just, you know, because this one right here, the DS9 and IRSA Viewer all understand regions, and you know, they understand decimal degrees and sexagesimals. So it should be transparent. It should just read it in without a problem.
Hey, Louisa?
Yeah.
Real quick, Bob's file that he sent out had some kind of like nice text overlay and like the, you know, he's switching in between dash lines and so forth. Is there, can we talk about that real quick?
Yep. So if you want to, so here's the region I just created, and it's still the one that's selected because you can see that it's got the dots in the corners. So if you go up to region and you would like to have it be, let's see, color magenta, we can do width 4. You can do dashed lines. You can do, you can change the font, but there's no label on here yet. So let's see if we do, where is the, oh, I know what it is. If we double click on it, it should give us a pop-up. Come on. Now it's just adding vertices. Why is it not? There we go. So if you double click on it, you get the pop-up that gives information about what it is that you're looking at. So then you can add, here is a label. Okay. And then it shows up. If you want to change what angle it appears, because right now it's the angle, because the tile was created in galactic coordinates, it's offset with respect to RA and DEC, and now I have north up. So it's trying to understand that I'm looking at the image the way that it is right now in the viewer, and I want the label to be right side up in the way that I'm viewing it right now. If you want to do rulers, right? So if we do region, shape, ruler, and then drag, it will do and same thing. If you double click on it, it'll give you parameters about it. So if you'd rather have the length in arc seconds or arc minutes, you can do that, and it'll show up on the image that way. Okay, more questions that people had that I didn't hit yet.
Is there a way to get a polygon on, if you were to have 2 frames, is there a way to get the polygon, put it on one and then have it on the other?
So the way that I would do it is save it. It's trying to save it on top of the other thing. So let me not do that. Okay, and then file, let's see, frame, new, file, open. And I'll go and get another image. I'll do one of the WISE images. And then region, come on, load it in, region load. And then the region I just had. Why it's not loading the image, I don't know.
There was an option on that region when you load it in to load it into one file, one frame or all frames.
Right. That's after you have both frames loaded in. So it affects the images that you have loaded when you try to load the region. In other words, it doesn't, when you say all images, it's all images you have currently loaded as opposed to all images you might load in the future. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, I don't understand why the WISE image isn't loading. Oh, it's just, no. Fascinating. Okay, frame match frame.
It might be washed out. I had some trouble viewing them the other
Your
the
file
day
name
before.
shows that you got WISE 3 opened up there. I don't know.
Yeah.
So try stretch.
Well, but yeah, you're right. If there's something in there. Oh, I bet that's it. I bet it's inherited the scale parameters we already put in. Yep. Okay, so let's do histogram equalization. All right, we're gonna try it this way. If we do, okay, so now I've got them both in here. So region load, and then the file that I just saved, and then load into all frames, and then it will go in. So to find where it went, I usually do frame single, and then zoom out until I find it, and then option click to center it, and then zoom in, and then do frame match frame WCS. And then if we tile it again, frame tile, you'll see it's in both. All the regions that we saved are in both images. So it's a little clunky, yes. Over here, if you load a catalog or load a regions file, it will appear on every image that you have loaded. Although at the moment it's struggling because it has so many things loaded in. Yeah. So IRSA Viewer is better in some ways in that it's more natively synced together, but at least at the moment, DS9 does better because in the sense for this specific task, because you can make more complicated shapes than you can with the IRSA tool. Okay, more questions on these kinds of logistics?
Well, I was working with DS9 yesterday. I found it frustrating when I ended up with just like a mess, and I wanted to go back. And since I hadn't actually changed the file, there was no Control Z to revert because I hadn't actually changed anything. And I found that I ended up having to close DS9 and just reopen it. Is there a way to step back through?
You saw that when I, a second ago, when the stretches weren't working, I just restarted it because sometimes, yes, it's just easier to restart it. But you can, if you want to delete a region, if you click on it. Why is it not talking to me? Fascinating. All right, so you should be able to click on it and then delete it. So, oh, I know what happened. Edit region. You should be able to click on it and delete it that way. So no, there's no easy way to undo, is if that's the short answer to your question. There's no easy way to undo. But there's lots of buttons and dials, you know, if you want to change how it's, you know, how it's stretching or how it, you know, what the max is and things like that.
That might come in the Voyager release.
Okay.
On a more serious note, at the tail end of the meeting yesterday, you worked with Finder Chart, and I tried to do some stuff with Finder Chart, and I couldn't get it to access the glimpse mission of Spitzer. Right.
So IRSA Viewer, if I go to the front page, so IRSA Viewer is the more flexible tool because you can load from, you know, many different data sets, and we're adding more all the time. So Finder Chart is a more specifically tailored tool where it's giving you access only to DSS, SDSS, 2MAS, WISE, SCIP, Akari, and IRAS. And because our region was observed in glimpse, not SCIP, Finder Chart can't see it. So Finder Chart will search catalogs for you automatically. So if you want some of the things that we were doing yesterday, so the small sample guys, again, because it's an IRSA tool, it vastly prefers a table file. And you can say, I want 30 seconds from Akari, doesn't matter, and there's no Sloan data. I want data from those 4 catalogs, and I want you to search the catalog too. And if I click one-to-one match, it will only give us the closest match within that search radius. So you load in the list of targets, and it's got the list of targets here, and then it shows you all the individual thumbnails for that object over here. It gives you the individual catalogs here on the bottom, and it makes a plot on the right. Now the plot is really silly, especially when there's no matches, right? But here, look, it's finding a nearby source within less than arcsecond, and here almost 5 arcseconds. So you know that if you go to the source 3, that there's going to be an offset, because this is one of the ones we talked about yesterday. So we know there's a big offset. And then these guys are also fairly large offsets, because it's about 1 and 1.5 arcseconds offset.
So Louisa, just a quick point, the glimpse is a subset of the SCIP.
not what we're doing. So SCIP right now is only cryo, and the data we're using is
Oh.
cryo.
Okay, yeah, I was just
Right.
using glimpse like the original glimpse. Okay, so you're
Well,
doing the
no,
post.
so in this, when you do a search for catalogs, you do have to still tell it, okay, I want glimpse. And then unfortunately, you have to figure out which delivery your thing is in, which is a giant pain in the butt and a barrier to usage for people who don't know which region.
Which has been one of me. I mean, it's
Yeah.
been like,
Yes.
which one is glimpse to? And MIPSGAL is the simplest one to figure out, but other than that.
Yes. But for the IC417 that we're doing, we have glimpse 360. That's where our
Okay,
data are.
okay.
Okay. In IRSA Viewer, because because I'm heavily involved with the development of this and trying really hard to reduce barriers to usage. If you go here, it really truly does search all the possible glimpse deliveries with one click. It used to be that you also had to know which file your image was in, but I pushed hard enough that they listened to me, so that now you only have to say just anything from glimpse. Doesn't matter when they took it, just anything from glimpse, and it'll get you the images. So then once you have the images in there, you can say, all right, I know that this image is in glimpse. Then I can go look at the FITS header and go and find out, oh, look, this was in glimpse 360. And so now you know what catalog to go look in to find the sources from it.
Okay, that's a nice improvement. I like it.
So we're getting there. It's hard because each one of the reason we can't just concatenate the catalogs is because the columns are different. And so each delivery has different information, and then it becomes more difficult to do one search that covers everything because all the columns are different in each of those subcatalogs. Okay, more questions.
You know how there's the filter function in IRSA Viewer that has your region, and then it cuts off all the other sources except that are inside of the region? Does DS9 have that same function?
Sadly, no.
Okay.
Yeah, sadly, no. So what I'm hoping that we'll be able to do is, after we settle on what region you guys want to define as the nebula stream, then while you guys are working on making SEDs, I've got code. So once we settle on the vertices for the region that you want, I will go and do the external to these tools. I've got code that says if I can give it a series of polygon vertices, and it will and I can then find out which ones of the sources in the 46,000 long catalog fall inside that region. Okay, I'm going to stop recording.